First of all, namaskar to all of you. This is indeed a very good opportunity for me to deliver a talk to the students and the audience, which is not belonging to the legal discipline. As I'm teaching law since 1991, and my audience is maximum times it is from legal background. Today I'm having the students and the teachers, faculty from the science background. But one thing is very important here is that we are going to speak on Constitution, Indian Constitution and the citizen's duty. So it is also important in this respect that all of you are the citizens of the country, and it is for the citizens that I must speak on that term, that what is Constitution and how these fundamental duties or citizens' duties are important for each one of us without having a specific discipline like law, science, or some other area. So when we talk about the Constitution, Indian Constitution, and I must congratulate also to the organizers here for going with the campaign of the government of India on these fundamental duties. That is to be made aware all the citizens as to what their duties are and how they have to perform their duties. So in that respect, first of all, we must know what is the Constitution, because we find these fundamental duties in the Constitution of India as a codified duties. So Constitution literally means that is what constitutes a body or how it is made up. So when we talk about the body, then we see that body may be an association, body may be a club, body may be a society, or body may be a state. So here this constitution is regarding the constituting a state. And in that respect, we see that in broadest sense, the constitution is a body that speaks about the rules for the governing of the affairs of its persons of various groups in an organized manner. So what are the duties of the persons? What are the rights of the persons? What are the working functions, powers, limits, etc. of these government agencies? That is all given in the constitution. So constitution that spells out, we can say, is the fundamental principles. It spells out the structure of various political system which we follow in our country, establishment of various state organs like executive, like judiciary, like legislature. And at the same time, it is not only establishing these organs of the state, but it also provides for the functions as to what shall be the functions of these state organs. Is these functions are absolute functions, there are certain limitations on these functions, what shall be their powers, and at the same time what is to be the relation between these organs of the state. So this is all the part of a constitution. So in India we have a constitution, and that constitution is constituted to run the governance, to run a political system, to run a sovereign state. And when we talk about the sovereignty, then we find that in Indian constitution, the sovereignty rests in the people. We, the people of India. Because when we talk about the constitution, then to my students, I always used to say that the constitution is your Bible, is your Gita, is your Quran, whatever you think, that is the constitution for a law student. But constitution is the supreme law of the land. This is the law on the basis of which all other laws, constitutionality or validity, is being tested upon. So being the suprema lex or supreme law of the land, we must also be aware as to what the constitution provides for. And the very preamble, that is the starting point of the constitution, that starts with we the people of India. And that we the people of India is nothing but they are claimed to be the source of power. the source through which the entire constitution is working, the entire governance is working, and we are being governed. So sovereignty resides in the people of India, the citizens of the country. Now, when we talk about the constitution, then one of the system which we have followed in our constitution governance, that is the democracy. And in democracy, you must be also aware that democracy is what? Democracy is for the people, by the people, and of the people. And this is said by Abraham Lincoln way back in his lecture in Gettysburg when he was talking about the democracy. So we are a democratic nation where sovereignty rests in the people. Now, if I say that the sovereignty rests in the people, then people in a raw are nothing. They are just like a mob. And when the people in whom the sovereignty rests, they are just like we can say mob. So what we have to do, the absolute power is to be given to these persons or in their hands, and to run the governance, to run the state with vast energy in a, it is like just a wild mountainous river, that if a river from the mountain it is running down to the, right from the hills to the lower down, and that will be having a force, that will be having a fury, and in that force and fury we feel that it has to be tamed down, it has to be harnessed down. And when we harness it, when we tame this river which is coming from the upper side to the lower south side with that force and fury, then in that respect we have to construct a dam, we have to build a dam. And when we build that dam, then naturally what happened, that the electricity is to be produced, that energy will be coming into that electricity, and again then we have to channelize and internalize that energy so as to make it usable to all the persons equally. So when we talk about the sovereignty, when we talk about the democracy, then we find that the sovereignty that vests in the human being, that in the people of India, and those people, when we see that as a raw people, then they are just like a mob, and mob can move to any side without using the mind, without being, we can say, without going into the right direction. It cannot work properly. So it has to be channelized, and it has to be made by through a dam, or a construction is to be made of that dam, so that the constitution can work. And here we see in India that the constitution is that dam through which the power is being channelized, the sovereignty and the democracy is being channelized, wherein the rights, the duties, and the other, we can say, functions of the political system, the various organs of the state, these all are given in the Constitution of India. So as when the constitution was being drafted, we all know that India was in the slavery of the Britishers, and India was a colony earlier. And when it started working, drafting on the constitution of India, at that time we find that the persons who were the members of the Constituent Assembly, that is the founding fathers of the constitution, they all have the experiences of the British slavery and British colonialism. So they thought most about the rights and not about the duties. Though during fighting and during this national, we can say, independence struggle, they were more and more towards their duties. But when the constitution was being drafted, this duty portion was not considered by the Constituent Assembly at first, and therefore we find that the constitution which was drafted, and the first meeting was held on 9th December 1946, and it continued till 26th November 1949. So this campaign which is being made by the government of India on this 26th November 2019 for making a campaign for the fundamental duties, and this is known as the Constitutional Law Day also, Constitution Day also, because On this particular day, the constitution was being given and adopted by the Constituent Assembly on behalf of the people of India for its working. So 26th November is known as the Constitution Day. So the constitution, which started drafting on 9th December 1946, was finally completed on 26th November 1949, and it was enforced from 26th January 1950. So when the Constitution of India was being drafted at that time, the Constituent Assembly members, they have seen so many constitutions of the world around, along with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And in that Human Rights Declaration, there were so many rights given in the Declaration of 1948, but at the same time, there was one Article 29(1) also. That was speaking about the duties, but in Indian Constitution, we have not put those duties, and we have put only fundamental rights in part 3rd of the Constitution. That is the rights available to the citizens as well as to the persons concerned. So our constitution is said to be the longest constitution. It's a written constitution. It is consisting of 395 articles, 22 parts, and 12 schedule. And various things have been elaborated in the constitution of India. And besides that, we don't have the fundamental duties chapter in the constitution. And Article 29(1) of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says that everyone has the duty to the community in which alone the free and full personality development of his personality is possible. So we have not considered that duty in 1946 to 1949 when the Indian Constitution was being drafted. And as I told you that the freedom fighters, they were all very much fond of these duties, and they were performing their duties while they were fighting, or they were struggling for the freedom fight. So the constitution, when first it was discussed, then whether there should be a duty chapter or fundamental duties in the constitution or not. So Mahatma Gandhi, he was of the opinion that there must be a chapter of the fundamental duties, or we must put the fundamental duties in the supreme law of the land, that is the constitution. And he also defined that what is right. Right is duty well performed. If we are performing our duties properly, then we'll have the rights from that duty also. There is one jurist who is of the opinion that there is no right to any person. There is only duty. Duty to, that is the performance of duty is your right. If you will perform your duty, then it is the duty of the others also to perform their duty, and in that way you will get your right. So right is duty well performed. So right carries with its corresponding obligation or corresponding duty. So there is a well-known incident with Mahatma Gandhi ji when this UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that that was drafted in that was declared in 1948, and after that it was sent by H.G. Wells for the subscription to Mahatma Gandhi, that you subscribe for the human rights. So Gandhi ji tabled him back, and he said that begin with a charter of duties of man, and I promise the rights will follow as spring follows winter. That simply means that there is nothing like any right. If you perform your duties, then the rights will come to you. Like summer follows winter, winter follows summer. Similarly, right follows duties, and duties follows rights. So these are two correlative things. And he said that the true source of the right is the duty. And for this, when he was writing back to H.G. Wells, then he has given the example of his mother. He said that I have learned this thing from my illiterate but wise mother. Illiterate but wise mother, that to perform your duty is the everything, and besides that, there is nothing. So we see that in India, when the constitution was adopted and constitution was enforced, then the power at center as well as in states, that was the single political party. Then after few years, we find that the parties at some regional level, there used to be some different political parties, they emerged out, and the parties at center and the states were not the same. And in that way, there was the time when the indiscipline grew up, then the strikes and dharna, all these things were coming up, and the channel which was made through the constitution, that was not fulfilled by the political parties. And otherwise also we find that various types of the industrials lockout and dharna production, everything was going on, so that everybody was talking about the rights, rights and rights, and no one was talking about the duties as to what is the duty of the citizen concerned. So at that time it was considered at center. That was the time in 1975. You may be aware of the emergency that was of 1975 June emergency on the internal disturbances ground. And this was the time when these indiscipline were going up in the society, and then the power at center, they thought about the bringing of codification of certain duties in the Constitution of India. So the Indian Constitution, in that we find that the duties were inserted by the 42nd Amendment in 1946, 1976 by the Constitution of India Amendment. So before going into that, we must know as to what were the suggestions as to how this particular fundamental duties were inserted in the Constitution of India. And for that, we find that a committee was appointed by the government, that is Sardar Swan Singh Committee. In 1976, and that committee's work or function was just to suggest and to recommend about the fundamental duties which has to be incorporated in the Constitution of India. And by that appointment of the Swan Singh Committee, they have started working on that. And when they started working on the duties as to what shall be the duties, they have also saw so many constitutions of the world. So we say that the insertion of the fundamental duties in the Constitution, that is not anything which can be said to be unique to the Constitution of India. And we find that various constitutions of the world, they are having the fundamental duties, be it Yugoslavia, Japanese constitution, German constitution, USSR, earlier USSR constitution, which is now known as the Russia, then Chinese constitution, Mexico, Vietnam, so many constitutions, more than 50 constitutions of the world, they were all having the chapter on the fundamental duties, again, as well as with the fundamental rights. And in Yugoslavia, you see that they have made the provision for the punishment of the violation or non-performing of the duty concerned. So this is there in the Yugoslavian constitution, which is not found in the Constitution of India. So when we see that the Swan Singh Committee, they have given certain recommendations for the for the incorporation of fundamental duties in the Constitution of India. At the same time, the then Law Minister H.R. Gokhale, he also, when he was presiding over one of the meeting of the All India Bar Association, then he also through this that how we can come out with this performance of the duties, because the situation is not good. So these two things which we see that the initiating point where from the Constitution of India has seen the insertion of the fundamental duties in the Constitution. So fundamental duties, Sardar Swan Singh Committee, initially it has recommended only 8 duties. And those 8 duties were not as we find in the Constitution of India under Article 51A. Some of the duties which has been recommended by Sardar Swan Singh Committee have been incorporated in the Constitution, while other duties which have been suggested and recommended by that committee, that has not been we can say find place in the Constitution of India. So that is very important, that those recommendations of Swan Singh Committee which has not found place or which were not inserted in the fundamental duties chapter in the Constitution, those are very important, because there are certain critics about the fundamental duties also, that these are the duties which have no sanction of law, because These duties are not enforceable in a court of law. These are just the moral, we can say, ideals which have to be followed by every citizen of the country. And if a citizen is not performing his or her duty, then there is no sanction behind that duty. That means there is no punishment, there is no penalty. If you perform your duty, it's okay. If you don't perform your duties, there is no sanction and there is no enforcement also in the court of law. So the suggestion or recommendation which was given by Swansea Committee on the fundamental duties, that is very important. That has not been incorporated in the Constitution of India. That was relating to that the citizens need to be penalized and punished by the parliament for non-compliance with the or with the refusal or to observe the duties as they have recommended. And the punishments and penalties are to be decided by the parliament, and that it shall not be brought into a question into any court of law. That means judicial exclusion was also suggested by Swansea Committee, that if there is any case of the violation or non-performance, non-compliance of the fundamental duties by the citizen, then that has to be decided by the parliament, and that has not to be decided in the court of law. And along with that, the duty to pay taxes, that was also recommended by Sardar Swansea Committee. That is not the part of the Constitution of India. Now, with 42nd Amendment to the Constitution of 1976, this is also known as the amendment which has made a mini constitution. Many parts of the constitutions have been amended by this 42nd Amendment 1976, and this was the period when the emergency was in proclamation. Emergency was there, and during this emergency period, amendments were made. So we see that after the emergency get over in 1977, and after that another ruling party came into power, and by 43rd and 44th amendment, various provisions which were inserted and amended by 42nd amendment, those all were repealed, deleted or modified. But this particular amendment related to the fundamental duties was not touched by the ruling party in 1977 onwards. It was only in 2002 that by 86th amendment, one more duty has been inserted in the part 4A of the Constitution. So coming to the point as to what are the fundamental duties of the citizen with which we have to be, with which we have to comply with, which we have to observe and perform those duties, that is given in the Supreme Law of the Land under Chapter 4A of the Constitution, and there is only one article, Article 51A. And that 51A is further subdivided into various clauses. There are 11 clauses from 51A, capital A to A, and then finally it is K. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. There are 11 duties of the citizen concerned. Now, first of all, we must know as to what are those duties of the citizens. So the first duty of every citizen of India is to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. So this is the first duty of every citizen of the country, that he has to abide by the Constitution which we are talking about, and to respect the ideals and the institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. This is the first duty of every citizen. Now, when we talk about the national flag and national anthem and to abide by the Constitution, then it is a duty of every citizen to abide by the Constitution. And it is also important that every citizen must follow the ideals and the institutions of the country. Now, as a citizen of the country, it becomes a duty. We are a country which is divided, or we can say in various castes, creed, culture, religion, and so many things. But for that, we have one nation, we have one constitution, And in that respect, we have to follow the Constitution of India. We have to follow and we have to respect the national flag and national anthem. Now, you must have heard about some of the case laws. I'm not going into detail as to what was the case, what was the decision in that. But very importantly, you must be aware about that. There was one picture, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, and in that picture, this national anthem was being picturized, and in that you see that the audience who was there, who was going to in that picture, they were all sitting, and one by one they started standing. So whether that was the thing where we have shown the respect to the national anthem, this was the question, and on that basis the case was filed in the Supreme Court of India. And after that, that how we have to pay respect to the national anthem and how we have to pay the respect to the national flag of India. This was the question. And in Shyam Narayan Choksi, that was the name of one of the case, where in 2018 the Supreme Court through its interim orders has said that in all these cinema halls, when the picture starts, before that starting of the picture, the national anthem has to be played, and the picture has to be there on the screen. Everyone has to be stand in the respect of the national anthem. That was the interim order. So when this order was issued by the Supreme Court of India, then there were so many things coming up or cropping up, and in that way we see that some 3 4 interveners were also went to the Supreme Court that if a person who is disabled, then there is a direction of the Supreme Court that everyone has to stand up for the respect of the national anthem. At the same time, the court has also said that during this playing of the national anthem, all the exit and entry doors are to be closed and has to be bolted out, because if any the doors will be open, then the persons will come and go, and that will create disturbance, and that will be against the respect of the national anthem. So in that respect, the court has said that during this playing of the national anthem, the doors are to be closed. So another intervention in the court was that there was a case in Delhi. You may be aware of that. There is a Upahar cinema hall where, due to the outbreak of the fire, so many persons were killed and injured because the doors were bolted and they couldn't go out, and they all died in the fire which has been there in the Upahar cinema. So the court has directed in that case that the gates should not be bolted. So in that situation, when this decision or direction was given through interim order by the court, that this national anthem has to be played before the beginning of the picture, and in respect of that national anthem, everyone has to stand up. So these type of the we can say direction interventions have been made, and then finally the court decided that it is optional with the cinemas that they play, and they have to ensure that the proper respect is being paid or not. So my point here is that these duties are of such nature which are having no force of law. That means these are not enforceable in the court of law. This is to come from the inner side of the citizen concerned, that this is our constitution, this is our national flag, this is our national anthem, and we have to pay the respect, we have to show the respect towards these things. So there is one more case regarding the singing of the national anthem. That was somewhere in 1987. Vijay Emmanuel, that was the name of the person that belonged to the Jehovah community. And during the school's timings, the prayer timings in the starting, when the school starts, then the students, they were not singing that national anthem, but they were standing alert and they have not created any disturbance. So a case was filed that they are not singing the national anthem, and the court said that if they are not showing disrespect, so it is not correct that everyone has to sing the national anthem, but not to pay disrespect. This is the duty. So whether you sing the national anthem or not, it is up to you. but you shall not pay disrespect towards the national anthem. You should not pay disrespect toward the national flag. This is your duty. So mind this, that the first fundamental duty of a citizen is what? It is to abide by the constitution and respect the ideals and the institutions of national flag and the national anthem. Naveen Jindal was the case wherein the court has directed and the court has given the order that if any person or citizen wants to have the national flag on his or her house, can do so, but with full respect, because there is a flag code of India also 2002, whereby certain norms have been mentioned that how you will respect your national flag. It is not like that on every 15th August or 26th January they are selling the national flags and the next day you find that all lying on the road. So this is not the respect you are paying to your national flag. And this has to be taken care of by the citizens of the country. So the first duty of every citizen, of me and you and everyone, is that we have to follow our national anthem, we have to respect our national flag, and we have to abide by the constitution. And how we can abide the constitution? We have to go through the constitutional provisions as to what is written there, because this is the duty of every citizen. We must know what is the supreme law of the land. If we are not aware of what is written in the supreme law of the land, we cannot work accordingly. So this is the first duty. The second duty of the citizen, of every citizen, is that to cherish and follow the noble ideals that inspired the national struggle of freedom. Now, when we talk about this duty, second duty, that is 51A clause B, then one of the constitutional writer, H.M.C. Rai, is a very, we can say, very famous jurist and constitutional writer, and he is having a good place in the field of law. He said that this is a duty which I think it is a ludicrous. But how we can say that we have to cherish and follow the noble ideals that are inspired the national struggle for the freedom, and when there is no sanction behind that? But to me, it seems that the citizens, Indian citizens, we must cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired the national struggle for freedom. Because the battle of freedom, that was a long one, and where the thousands of the persons, our forefathers, they have sacrificed their lives for our freedom. And it becomes the duty of ours to remember the sacrifices which they made for our freedom, so that we can live in a free society, in an independent society. So this is the time that we must fulfill this duty, that we must cherish and we must follow that what were the noble ideals and of our freedom fighters, and how they inspired us. So this is the duty, and we must teach this to all the future generations, that this is one of the basic duty of the citizen concerned. Then we find that there is one more duty under 51A clause 3 C, that is the third duty of every citizen, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of the country, that is of India. So when we talk about the sovereignty, we know that sovereignty rests in the people of India. When we talk about the unity and integrity of India, so we find that the preamble also speaks about the unity and integrity of India. So this word integrity was not there before 1976 or before 42nd Amendment. This has brought only after 42nd Amendment. As I told you that after 1960s, the power at center and power at the state level, they were of different political parties. So indiscipline grew at a large scale, and it was a threat to the integrity and unity of the country, that this duty has been put in the constitution as a fundamental duty. So this is the duty of all of us, to protect to protect ourselves, to protect our country from this unity and integrity. It should remain as there, and we have to imbibe these things in our fellow citizens also, that yes, we have a duty that we must protect the unity of the country, we must protect the integrity of the nation. Only then we can survive as a civilian in the country. And so whether the time is going up. Yes. So after that, I would like to further elaborate upon the another duty that is of the citizen, that is to defend the country and render national services upon uh, when it is called for. So national services, this is the time of COVID. How many of us are doing this national service? This is up to every citizen that we must follow that. What is the duty of every citizen, that if whenever we are called for the national service, we must go for that, and we must think that India is our country and we have to perform that duty. Then there is another duty, 51A clause E, which speaks about to promote the harmony and the spirit of the common brotherhood amongst the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or we can say sectional diversities, at the same time to renounce the practices derogatory against the dignity of women. So two duties have been there in 51 clause A E, which speaks about the common brotherhood as well as to renounce the practices derogatory against the women. We have the culture of the common brotherhood in our country, that is there in the Indian way of life, and we have to follow that, and at the same time we have also to respect the dignity of the women. But we find that in today's scenario we are not we can say remembering these things, the common brotherhood, the harmony. You see there are communal violence, you see there are the fights on the basis of the region and religions also. We see that the women are not safe. Where is the dignity of the women? So we have, this is our duty, that we have to follow all this. And yatra naristu pujate ramante tas devta, this was the saying in the Indian culture, and we are not following that thing. So we have to perform that duty as a citizen. Then 51A clause F, another duty, that is value and preserve the rich heritage of the country's composite culture. India is a country of rich culture. We have rich tradition of 5,000 years or more rich culture. We have the India is a land of the where we have seen that the Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and so many other things have been developed. A rich culture is here, and we have to preserve that. We have not to go against these things, and we have to preserve the composite culture of India, which is very unique and which is very important for all of us as a Indian citizen. Then G, protect and improve the natural environment, forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife, and have the compassion for the living creatures. So animals and forest and environment, this is another duty of all of us, that we have to take care of our environment. So you see that during lockdown, the environment is very clear now, and we are witnessing that the pollution has level has been reduced down. So this should not be only to that period. We have to take care of that deforestation, devastation. So many things are coming up, so that the Supreme Court has to give the directions also that the education on environment should be made compulsory at the graduate undergraduate level, and to so that the citizens should know as to what they have to protect for the future generations also. Then develop scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of the inquiry and reform. This is another duty of the citizen of the country, that we have to develop that scientific temper. So you being the students of science, you belonging to the field of science, you must be aware as to what is that scientific temper, how it has to work, and what has to be done. This is very important. Then safeguard the public property and to abjure violence. We have to do this thing, because in today's scenario we find that the public property is not being protected and safeguarded by the people of India. There are so many things are resulting from the terrorism and otherwise also. We have to take care of all these things. And then the 10th duty of the citizen of the country is to strive towards the excellence in all the spheres of individual as well as collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to the higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So for that we have to perform this duty. We have to see, we have to strive for what? that we may get excellence in all these spheres, be it science, be it law, be it otherwise also, at the same time industry, so that we can see that the nation is on the top. Our nation is coming under the developed countries, and we are not still developing countries. So this is all we have to see. And by 86th amendment, as I told you, that one more duty has been incorporated or inserted in the article 51A, that is providing for the opportunity to education for the child or the ward of the person between the age of 6 and 14. So any child who is of 6 to 14 years of age, this is the duty of his parent, this is the duty of his guardian, that he must send to the student to the school, so that he can learn and can have the education properly. So whether these duties are working or not, Justice Verma committee has been appointed, and after that a commission of the review of the constitution was appointed. They have given certain suggestions and recommendations also for the fulfillment and enforcement of these duties. Also suggested that right to vote should be a duty, right to pay the tax should be included in the duty. But whatever is there, we find that in India these duties are something which is now in a codified form in Article 51A, but this is nothing but this is a way of the life. This was the Indian way of the life, and we were all performing that these duties in our country way back. It was not that for the first time we are having these duties. This is there in our culture, in our way of life. And as you may be aware of this this one verse in the Gita, that is in the second chapter, 47th verse, and I would like to end with that karmanya vadika raste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karm phal hetur bhurma te sango svatva karmani, so that you have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of the action. So perform your duty, that is the duty, that is your right, and you must learn that what are your duties. So I'm not saying that you perform all the duties every time. You perform the duty and you take it as a campaign, that you will tell to the others also that this is your duty, you perform that duty. Only then this campaign would be successful, and the awareness would be there in the persons, in the citizens, that yes, this is our duty towards the nation, and by performing that duty we can take our nation in the world map, so that we have to perform these duties. And by this I stop here, and as the time goes, so I'd like that if there is any question, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very enlightening note on the constitutions and our duties. So, sometimes it is a little bit dilemma that we do not know the constitutions because it is very long and people basically mislead it with the written word. But as I understand with your talk that these constitutions and our duties basically a simulation of humanitarianism, empathy, should consider our cultural heritage. It should also be part of natural justice. And I know that we can do at our individual level.
Yeah.
If we can inculcate that things in our cultures, everybody can contribute to development of the nations, and we can put the priority at the nation first. So I would like to take few questions, maybe 4. So if any confusions and dilemma about their duties, if they have faced sometimes the experience, if they want to make some clarification from them. So or to the students, if they have maximum 4 questions will be taken.
No problem.
Basically not very. You can have just a discussion dialogue.
Okay.
Yes, Prashant.
Yes, sir. I will ask the question that suppose, ma'am, I want to ask that in case of international agreements which are done in the country like WTO and other CAT agreements, in that case, if any rule of that agreement if abandoned means does not follow the Indian Constitution, then in that case that agreement is approved, and if approved, then what we do with respect to our Constitution, which to protect the laws of our Constitution, what we could do in that case.
Actually, the Constitution provides for the respect of the international treaties and international covenants, international conventions also. Regarding WTO, this is a specific question. So, if there is any agreement, that is a contract between the states, between the parties, that is two states enter into. If there is a this WTO, the if India is a signatory, India has entered into that, then it has to follow those things. So constitution is not there, then again we have to have the laws of the international law for that, which may be applicable. If we are not following, if the country is not following, then there are rules that the case has to be brought before the agencies at international level, and then it has to be sought out. So constitution is only giving you the principles, giving you or providing you certain ideas that you have to work upon that. Constitution itself is not, we can say, a law which can say that you are not performing, so within the constitution this is violative. Violative is only the fundamental rights portion, that if any of your fundamental right is being infringed or violated, then you can go to the court of law. So by showing that your duty, your this WTO provision is not being followed, then if you find that or will make under any of the constitutional provisions under the fundamental rights, then you can go to the courts in India. Otherwise, this is a relation between two independent countries, between the United Nations and the state countries, between any other agency and the state party. So for that, remedy is at the international level.
Okay, now one very maybe from like the staff side, Dr.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, I have one query regarding is there any punishment for the persons who will say anything against the nation?
Yes, so far as the constitution is concerned, these duties, as I told you, these duties are only, we can say, to have performed, there is no sanction of law. But whether there is any punishment for that or not, yes, there is a punishment, and we have to see that the enforcement of these duties are through the various law. For example, we have the Emblems and Names Prevention of Improper Use Act of 1950. We have the prevention of insults of the national honor. We have the Flag Code of India. We have unlawful activities prevention. We have protection of civil rights. So many acts are there. So under that law, one can be punished and penalized for the violation of the provisions.
Is there any things are there, what are the under freedom of speech, what we have to say or not to say?
Yes, yes. If you have a right under the freedom of speech and expression, so first of all, this is given under the Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution. But this freedom of speech and expression is not an absolute right. There is a reasonable restriction under Article 19 Clause 2 itself in the Constitution, that you cannot speak which is defamatory, which is incitement, it is against the foreign relations of the country, which is against the sovereignty, integrity, security of the nation, which is against the morality and decency. So there are 8 grounds which are given under Article 19 Clause 2. So your speech and expression is not an absolute. It is reasonably restricted within the constitution itself. Besides that, there are provisions in the Indian Penal Code also that you cannot speak anything against anyone. Hate speech is there is a law for that also. You cannot speak in the public which is creating hate amongst them. So your right to freedom of speech and expression is there, but that freedom is not an absolute freedom. That is reasonably restricted within the constitution. Besides that, there are laws which are there, and for example, you can not say that the person is belonging to this community and you can say any words for them. We have the Protection of Civil Rights Act, we have the protection of the SC/ST Act of 1989. So many things are there. So speech and expression is never absolute right.